Hello. So, in the world of comic books, when people are discussing comic characters, Aquaman, people sort of talk down on. He's, he's sort of lame, especially, you know, comparing to Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman. He, he doesn't do very well in conversations. And I think this is wrong. So, as the title of the video says, I'm going to defend Aquaman. Now, Aquaman started November 1941. What is it? Episode number 73 of More Fun Comics. Aquaman was introduced. World War II was going on at the time. Many of the DC characters were helping to fight the war. A little wartime propaganda. And so Aquaman, of course, helped fight the war. He spent a lot of his early days fighting U-boats. And now U-boats, of course, World War II, they were sort of stealthy. They had a very bad reputation because they were, in many ways, a bad thing. A single U-boat could do a lot of damage to a convoy. They were stealthy. You don't just surface a surrender and then start firing. You stayed underwater and you attacked ships, and they were considered evil in many ways just because they were stealthy and they could do a lot of damage and they didn't put up a fair fight, quote unquote. Some of that was carryover to World War One. There was a lot of complaints about U-boats just because, well, you got to give the ship a chance to surrender first, and well, if we did that, then we'd be leaving ourselves open to be sunk. So U-boats weren't looked on very favorably. And so we have this great evil danger, which we need someone who can fight it. Superman and Wonder Woman, it had already been established they could only hold their breath for a short amount of time. Longer than humans, but less than it would be needed to do a good fight against a U-boat. So we get this marine-based character, Aquaman, created to fight U-boats. War ends, he continues to fight pirates and modern day, whatever ocean, water-based threats to the world. Okay, sounds pretty good. Now, what happened though was, as we hit the Silver Age of comic books, things started to change. So, Golden Age comic books, prior to super, heroes, comic books were generally, there were westerns, there were detectives, and there were science fiction, primarily. So a lot of your Golden Age villains were gangsters or mad scientists. You had a few sort of magical, mystical types, but most of your villains weren't super villains per se. They were just people with gadgets, or just people who used their brains rather than powers. You had a few mystical ones, but most of them were gangsters. Had a few, like the mad scientists with gadgets. When we moved into the Silver Age of comic books, this started to change. And so, instead of fighting just mad scientists and gangsters, Superman starts fighting actually superpowered people. Metallo and Brainiac and these hero or villains with actual powers to them for Superman to fight. And more and more, we started to get into it. Even the mad science ones, they started to get more menacing than they were in the Golden Age. And of course, to match up with this, we have to start powering up the heroes. And so we did. And Now, at this time, Batman and Superman were the two money makers, and if we're powering Superman up, we have to start powering Batman up too. And so they start powering Batman up, but he doesn't have superpowers. His whole shtick is he doesn't have superpowers. So we just start giving him more gadgets and more gadgets, more stamina. Golden Age, he had to sleep. Silver Age, it was started to get to the point more along the lines of he's Bruce Wayne during the day and he's running around as Batman at the night. And does he ever sleep? And the answer is he doesn't seem to. So Batman starts to become a little more ridiculous as time goes on, And a lot of they rewrote some of the Golden Age. So the Atom in the Golden Age, that was just a short guy. He was athletic, he was smart, but he was just a short guy who fought crime. Silver Age, they gave someone a super suit that allowed him to shrink, and he became the Atom. Wonder Woman, it took a bit longer than the Silver Age, but eventually they traded in her invisible plane for the ability to actually fly. And so they're gradually upgrading the superheroes to match up with the villains as they're being upgraded, except for Aquaman. Aquaman, he was a water-based character, so we have to sort of keep him as a water-based character. We can't just allow him to start flying because that would be ridiculous. Fish don't fly. Now, there is a quote-unquote flying fish, which is basically a fish that can just jump out of the water for short periods of time. It doesn't really fly. It doesn't go on land. It can jump out of water, and I think some of them can glide a little bit, but they're not out of the water for more than a few seconds usually. So the world of comic books, it wouldn't surprise me if someone had thought, well, there are flying fish, let's make Aquaman fly. But they didn't. Which, why I'm defending him is because they actually kept the comic book realistic. As everyone else was, advancing at more ridiculous rates, Aquaman, they sort of kept with his theme and kept him more realistic. And so it's not that he's a lame character, it's just that the other characters grew more ridiculous. Eventually they made him the king of Atlantis. They gave him some Atlantean technology, but Atlantis is still a water-based kingdom, so he doesn't have flying machines. He doesn't have cars that can go on land. His weakness that they wrote into it was he has to, stay on. He has to get back to water within a certain period of time, and they changed that. So, some comic strips he can stay on land for a few hours, some up to a day, but he has to eventually get back into the water, or else he'll die. So, 3/4 of the world, the surface of the Earth is covered in water, which means that 1/4 of the surface of the Earth is Aquaman's kryptonite. And they could try to change this, but they didn't. It was part of his character. Good heroes have weaknesses, Making someone 100% invincible just makes him more ridiculous. That was one of the reasons Bane grew so popular, was someone could actually beat Batman in a fight. Batman was getting ridiculously stupid to where he was just invincible. We had to show he wasn't completely invincible. He could lose a fight. So Aquaman, again, he has a very realistic weakness, which they couldn't just write away. Like, they wrote away, it would be, again, ridiculous. The character would have become ridiculous if they made it so, he doesn't need to stay in water anytime. So like I said, yes, he became one of the weaker characters of the DC universe. But it's not because he was a bad character or because he is a lame character. It is because the other characters progressed in a more lame fashion and they just got more ridiculous as they went along. So, like I said, Aquaman deserves a lot more respect than some people give him just because he was more realistic. He is a better hero in many ways than a lot of the more favorite ones. And so that's my defense of Aquaman. Disagree if you want, but you're wrong.